Do you know the phrase retail therapy? Like, that's basically my slogan for 2020. Just saying. Hey everyone, it's Kayla, and today I am showing you all of the books that I have bought this year so far. Most of them in quarantine because, hello, we all needed a little pick-me-up during that time period. And some of them are birthday books that I got last month. I turned 31, so ancient. Since I have a few things to show you, I'm gonna jump right into the haul. In April, I picked up Shortfall by Robert Jackson Bennett. This is the second book in the Founders trilogy, the first book being Foundry Side. I absolutely love this book. It's probably my favorite book of the year so far. Definitely glad I picked it up. And look how beautiful this cover is. Like, I'm just in awe right now. This series has a magic system, which is basically like magical hacking, and objects have consciousness and you can give them commands to do different things or think different things to manipulate, reality. And it's just so creative, and I love our characters in this series. There's like a huge found family that's so precious to me. There's also an amazing female-female relationship in here with our main character, and I just highly recommend this series. It's one of my favorites of all time right now. In April, I also picked up The Girl in the Stars by Mark Lawrence. This is the first book in the Book of the Ice trilogy, the spin-off trilogy to Book of the Ancestor, which includes Red Sister. That's a fantasy series about assassin nuns basically on an ice planet, and this series tells a tale about people living on that ice. So I already read it. I'll talk about it in another video. So moving on, because this is not a wrap up, it is a haul, and I keep telling myself that because already we are at 10 minutes and I've gotten through 2 books. Okay. So then I picked up The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. My friend Connor at Connor O'Brien really loved this, and I trust everything he says. So we have a lot of similar tastes in books, like middle grade and fantasy. I believe it is about a bookkeeper in charge of magical use, or the department in charge of magical youth, which is like interesting because I loved the Wayward Children series, and I'm sure that has nothing to do with the other, obviously, but it's a different premise. So I'm definitely excited to check this out, and I know there's a lot of LGBTQ representation in this, so I'm really excited. So then I picked up Lovely War by Julie Berry. This is an historical fiction, alternate historical fiction with mythology thrown in. I think it takes place during a war and follows 4 main characters, but then we are told their stories by Aphrodite. Historical fiction and mythology, what more do you need to tell me before I purchase this? Just putting it out there. So then, because the world is shit and I wanted to just feel good and read some fluff, I got a lot of contemporary books here, and I don't regret that decision because we all just need an escape right now, and it was just nice to read rom-com type of things and feel good stories. So let's get into this pile. I picked up Beach Read by Emily Henry. I know a lot of people love this book. I already read it. It's about 2 authors who find themselves neighbors in a small town setting, and they each write different genres. One writes literary fiction, the other writes romance, and they make a bet to write the other genre, and it's just really good, really feel good. There are some deeper elements to this. I will say there's a trigger warning for parent death and depression and grief, and I think it's handled really well. So then I picked up Big Summer by Jennifer Weiner. Jennifer Weiner is one of my favorite authors. I have literally read everything she ever wrote. If you're familiar, she wrote In Her Shoes, a great book about 2 sisters, but we're not hauling that one. I'm not sure exactly what Big Summer is about. I didn't read any summary about it, and I know you're like, what? Why would you buy a book? Because Jennifer Weiner's an insta-buy author for me. Like, I'll admit that. Like I said, most of her books, if not all of them, contain plus-size characters. Sometimes the representation is amazing. Sometimes the representation is problematic. But I personally enjoy the way she displays fat characters because I can relate to most of the issues that she talks about. And yeah, so I just know that going in. Just wanted to put a disclaimer. But I absolutely love Jennifer Weiner. She can craft backstory, like a character's backstory, like no other. I know that when I read a Jennifer Weiner book, I am getting that character's complete history, either in a flashback or multiple flashback chapters. I love her writing. So yeah, Big Summer. So then I picked up The Worst Best Man by Mia Souza. This is a rom-com as well. I believe it's about a woman who comes across or meets up with the best man from her failed marriage previously. I think it's enemies to lovers, and I know Sam from Thoughts on Tomes has mentioned how realistic the sex scenes are, so always grateful for that. So yeah, I'm definitely excited to check this out, and that's why I hauled it. Like I said, I hauled a lot of fluff here because I just needed to be happy for just a brief moment in this terrible, shitty existence of a year. So then in June, there was a week where we all tried to fill the bestseller list with Black authors and in support of Black authors because of Black Lives Matter. And I'll leave a bunch of donation links below. Please go check them out. I really support Black Lives Matter, and it's just so crucial. So crucial that you vote in November. Just putting it out there. So the first two books I bought were more fluff. I got Take a Hint, Danny Brown, which is actually the sequel, and Get a Life, Chloe Brown. And these are about the Brown sisters. It's like a companion kind of series. And I already read Get a Life, and I enjoyed it overall. I'm not a big fan of the sex scenes and the way she totally jumps from A to like smut. It's just a little jarring, but I really enjoyed it. Definitely gonna check out the sequel. Get a Life, Chloe Brown features a Black plus-size main character who has chronic pain, and the representation is just amazing. And I'm excited to read the sequel soon because the relationship Chloe had with her sisters, all the feels. So yeah, I love sister bonds and things like that in books. So then I picked up A Song Below Water by Bethany C. Morrow. This is a book about sirens and sisterhood, and also has Black representation. And it says, a captivating modern fantasy about Black mermaids, friendship, and self-discovery set against the challenges of today's racism and sexism. So I'm definitely excited to check that out. And then finally, as a part of that week to support Black authors, I picked up The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. N.K. Jemisin is one of my favorite fantasy writers. I absolutely loved the Broken Earth trilogy, the 5th season, if you're familiar with that title more. I'm basically going into this book blind. I'm not exactly sure what it's about. I know it's set in New York City, and it says, every great city has a soul. Some are ancient as myths, and others are as new and destructive as children. New York City, she's got 6. So that's really intriguing. And like I said before, N.K. Jemisin has pretty much become an insta-buy author going forward. I still have yet to read her Inheritance trilogy and the Dreamblood duology, but that is definitely up on my list. I own them, so I will be reading them hopefully in the next year or so. I'm not going to say soon because I always say that and it's never soon. So, but I'll definitely be picking up this shortly. Oh, new word. So next I have a few graphic novel type of things, only like 4. You know, that's a little small for me, but I picked up Primer. It's a DC graphic novel about a girl who can paint and use powers, I believe. Not really sure what the whole summary is, but anything that includes art and good art, I am all aboard for. I'm not sure if it's part of a series or not, or it's just a standalone, but it'll be a quick read, and I really love the color schemes that they use a lot. So yes. So then in June, I picked up volume 13 of Giant Days, which is the second to last volume of the series. And when I say that this series is like one of my favorites of all time, it might be my favorite comic series of all time. And that is including like Saga and all that. I absolutely adore this series so much. It's like a snapshot of 3 friends in college. It followed them through their whole 4 years in college and university and life's trials and different things like that. And it's just filled with humor and feel-good moments and such relatable moments. And I just love the female friendship in here so much. I should definitely do a video on Giant Days sometime because it's just so touching and meaningful to me. And going forward, these characters are going to stay with me for years. And the final volume comes out in October, and I'm just not prepared for it at all. So wish me luck. So then the final 2 graphic related things I have to show. I recently rewatched Avatar in May when it came on Netflix, and it just still so good. Still so good. Actually better the second time around. This is the second time I've ever rewatched the series. Like, I've seen a lot of episodes multiple times, but I've never watched it straight through. Guys, it is literally a masterclass in character development and writing and world building. Actually, it's just a masterclass in writing, period. And I'm just so amazed, and I continue to be amazed like constantly about this series. It's just so good, and it holds up, and it's just therefore, I picked up The Legacy of the Fire Nation. It features cool, like, different things about the Fire Nation. There's, like, some letters from Uncle Iroh when he was in the war to Zuko, and, like, family trees, and, like, different tidbits and things like that. Like, the map fold out, and I don't know. I just had to have it because it's Avatar related, and I love me some Zuko and Azula, so I'm really excited to read this cover to cover. Especially to learn more about Iroh because I think he's featured heavily in here. So then I picked up Imbalance, which is the next trilogy in the Avatar comics. All the comics are canon, by the way. If you're a fan of the show and haven't like touched the comics, what are you doing with your life? The first 5 trilogies were done by the same author. This one has switched to Faith Erin Hicks. I've heard her name before. I just forget what she has done, but yeah, I'm just definitely excited. And they come out with trade paperbacks for each volume. There's 3, obviously, because it's a trilogy. But then at the end of it, they bind it up into this beautiful library edition. And most of the time, yeah, they have like tidbits on the sides, like the margins about like behind the scenes stuff, or like what the creator was like, you know, trying to do there, or thought, or like the thought process. So these comics definitely bridge the gap between Avatar and Korra's world, which I really appreciate. So yeah, definitely excited that I picked that up. So the last few things I got for my birthday. So let's just dive into that mini birthday haul. So my mom and my sister got me a few books. House of Dragons by Jessica Cluess. She's the author of the Kingdom on Fire series, which I marathoned this year and absolutely love that series. I wish it was longer actually. It's a trilogy about sorcerers and things like that, but like a class system among the sorcerers and magicians and witches, which I loved. And it's definitely really dark for YA, like super dark. So I highly recommend it. But that is why I wanted to pick this up, because dragons. This cover and title are giving me major Game of Thrones vibes. So we shall see, and we're not going to dive into Game of Thrones season 8 because it's still too raw to talk about. I also got Cersei by Madeline Miller. I loved the Song of Achilles by her, and I don't know much about Cersei, but I know she's part of Odysseus' story, I think. So it has to be a win. I love mythology, love the Song of Achilles, so that's why I had it on my wish list, and I believe my sister got me this one. Yeah, so excited. So then my aunt got me a few comics. She actually read comics herself when she was younger, back in like the 70s and 80s, and she has like boxes in her basement of pristine single issue comics, and I would love to go through them sometime, maybe like in a video. I think that'd be so much fun. So she picked me up Die Volume 1, which is Fantasy Heartbreaker. This series is basically like Jumanji. Like, that's basically the premise. I mean, in the 90s, 6 teenagers disappeared into like a role-playing game and only 5 returned, and then 30 years later the story takes place and the adults are broken, obviously, and I am just really excited for this. I mean, all you have to say is Jumanji and I am there. And because a lot of my favorite series are ending, I really want to start new series to look forward to and things, so I hope this is a winner for me. She also picked up Ascender Volume 2 for me by Jeff Lemire, and this is the sequel series to Descender, which I love so much. Descender is like a space opera, kind of like Star Wars. If you love Star Wars, check out Descender because it's super good. And this series actually is going to be more fantasy based, and it features like some of the same characters from Descender, like set in the future. Jeff Lemire is one of my favorite comic writers. He wrote Sweet Tooth. So yeah, I have high hopes for this whole entire series going forward. So then my cousin bought me the Zombolenium bind up. There's 4 volumes in this series, and they're huge, but they're also very skinny. I read the first volume, Zombolenium, years ago, like way back in the beginning of my channel, and I loved it. It's about supernatural creatures who run an amusement park. It's just hilarious. But it's a French graphic novel series, and the rest of the volumes weren't translated at that time, and they finally came out like last year, and I was like, oh my god, I have to have it. So yeah, I'm so excited that I own this, and I'm definitely gonna reread Zombolenium and then check out the rest of the series. And yeah, I might do a review on this too, because I feel like nobody knows about this series, and they definitely should. So then Sam from Thoughts on Tomes picked me up The Wicked and the Divine Volume 5, and I'm 1 volume behind in this series, I think. This is one of her favorite graphic novel series, and I love the artwork in here. Let me see if I can show you some non-X-rated things. Like, oh, that's actually not that page. Like, it's just so colorful. Like, it's just one of my favorite art styles of all time. This series is about gods who come back to Earth as humans, and they have 2 years to live and figure out what's going on with them. And I really love the series. I wasn't a fan of Volume 3, which had guest artists. It just threw me off a little bit and felt a little filler, but I'm definitely excited to get back into this, and it definitely fits our friendship because, like I said, I love graphic novels, and this is one of her favorites. So I think the caption that came with the present was like, this just felt correct, and it does. So then Sam also got me The Shadow of Kyoshi, the 2nd book in the Kyoshi series, which follows Avatar Kyoshi's life and story, and I haven't read book 1 yet, which is a sin. It's been on my summer TBR though, so I'm definitely getting into it in August. But I'm excited to read this. Kyoshi is such a badass avatar, and she was canon bisexual, so I stan a queen, you know what I'm saying? So thank you, Sam. So then my friend Connor from Connor O'Brien got me a few things. He got me The Toll by Neil Shusterman. This is the 3rd book in the Scythe trilogy. I own the first 2, and I haven't read them yet actually, but I'm a marathoner when it comes to trilogies lately. So I'm excited to pick this up. I heard it's so different. I think it's set in the world where like population control is a thing and nobody dies, but there's people who train to be scythes and they have to kill people to maintain the population, something like that. So it just definitely sounds intriguing. I've seen multiple people rave about it, so definitely a win, so thank you, Connor. He also got me The Lightning Thief Illustrated Edition by Rick Riordan, and I love Percy Jackson. We love middle grade. Connor and I always like trade middle grade recs, or actually more so he's recommending things to me. But middle grade just fits with our friendship, and I'm just so happy to have this. The original series isn't actually in my mind much anymore. It's kind of like fuzzy, the details. And I definitely want to reread them because of the adaptation that's finally coming out on Disney Plus. I'm glad I now own this. It's beautiful. I mean, look at that. It is just gorgeous. And yes, thank you, Connor. And finally, Connor also got me the Wings of Fire graphic novel for book 2, The Lost Heir. And I guess they're turning all of them into graphic novels, which is exciting, but there's also 13 out. And yes, Connor and I have read all 13 books plus the prequel that was out too. It's definitely a series that we both love and love to talk about. And I really appreciate this. And ironically, I feel like every time we gift each other something, there's something Wings of Fire involved. I think like for his law school graduation, I even got him a Wings of Fire book. It's just funny how it's working out. So I really appreciate that, and it's definitely a great nod to our friendship. For those of you that don't know, Wings of Fire is about dragon tribes at war with one another. There's not really humans in this world as we know them. They're scavengers, creatures called scavengers to these dragons, and it's a middle grade series, but there's definitely more violence and political warfare and intrigue involved than that, and there's magic and just amazing creative world building, I must say. And considering there's been 13 books and each 5-book set is an arc essentially, the creativity just keeps coming. Like, I'm loving this 3rd arc so much, and you would think after 13 books it would get stale after a while. No, I love the series so much, and I wish more people read it and gave it a chance. And I'm definitely excited that they're converting it into graphic novel form because hello, I love graphic novels. So yes, thank you, Connor. All right, that is it for this book haul. Let me know below if you've read any of these things and what you thought about them, and I will see you all soon with another video. Bye. And this is the sequel to Foundry Side. The trilogy is called Founders. What is with me? Oh my God. It's not a wrap up. It's not a wrap up. This is gonna be awful. Back to filming. It is just not going well. Historical fiction and mythology, definitely 2 of my favorite buzzwords, so obviously I had to have this about a girl who can paint and use powers, and I find that really I'm looking at myself the whole time, ain't I? So we're at 55 minutes for about 20 books. That tracks. That's typical, meaning I'll probably be done editing by the time I turn 32 next July.